right. Thank you so much, Ali, and for everyone for being patient here with us. So I'm going to be bringing up my presentation here for a moment. Just catching up with technology. Okay, so I'm excited for the presentation today. So this is a topic that's central to my journey in my professional and personal growth, and and it really comes down to the basic practice of observation, and it's core to the process of communication in the workplace. So just to back up a little bit and a little bit about myself. So my name is Arya, and my sort of mindfulness journey began when I started doing Kung Fu. It was an internal style of martial arts, and there was a lot of meditation involved, and slow forms and movements to kind of bring presence to the breath and presence to the body. And from that vantage point, creating more awareness to the surrounding space. So I continued that journey, that inward journey, so to speak, and got into different mindfulness meditation practices to sort of increase my awareness about the language of my body and what's really going on internally, and being able to express that in a way that helps me understand things a little bit better. And then my professional direction went toward organizational development. So everything I'm going to be talking about today, and my passion is to apply and notice without judging too quickly or reflecting too quickly. So instead build on ideas. For example, at Pixar, they make a lot of successful movies, animated movies, and one thing that they have in their culture is to say yes and. I can say a really stupid idea, and still I would be responded with yes and. What about this character is going to go ahead and do this, and then we continue to build on each other's ideas and trusting, which is something that we'll get to later on, that the best idea will hold itself up in that. Let's see, so that's a little bit of my background. So the intention today is to just talk about mindfulness. What is it? Why is it important? What kind of benefits does it offer us? And we'll go over some core practices that you might want to try, if something you want to experiment with to help you reap some of those benefits. And again, so the way I look at it is it's a process. Mindfulness is a process of self-mastery, particularly in times of high stress and uncertainty. So how can we become present and mindful of our emotional climate, other people's emotional situations, and being able to have control over that to some extent to create the best positive outcome. Okay, so here's the benefits of mindfulness that evokes authenticity, in us. Essentially being ourselves, without having to uphold to mental chatter. So some of the benefits that is also proven in science, and I've experienced it myself, and which is why I'm kind of pursuing this topic, is that you're able to regulate stress by, for example, this morning so it's morning here, by the way, and I think it's the afternoon over there, and my technology got screwed up here. I was trying to connect with you guys, and so I was kind of, in question, is this going to work? How am I going to get my internet to work back on? So there's a level of, so I had a chance to really practice this and become present and, do some troubleshooting and get the system to be working again. So the ability to regulate stress and come back on, is something that we can all use in the workplace, because, you have a plan you go in with, and it's always going to change. There's always going to be a level of uncertainty, always a margin of error that is possible. So how can we develop the resilience and awareness to bounce back up? It's also more focused presence. So there's studies show on neuroscience studies that show that people who practice mindful awareness, focusing attention on the breath for a certain period of time, there certain parts of the brain activate and certain parts of the brain deactivate, allowing greater focus and more emotional stability. So life is all about ups and downs. You look at the heartbeat. It's got spikes up and down. It's going up and down. You look at the mountain ranges. There's a valley. There's the peaks. You look at how water circulates the planet. You have the ocean filled with water, and it's going up. That idea. Same with emotions. Sometimes we have a great day. Sometimes we have a not so great day. So how can we gently guide those? Showing that my connection gets off and on here. Hopefully you guys can hear me okay.
Having little issue with there's a distortion, but please continue. I think we can catch up.
Okay, just let me know. Interrupt me anytime. So yeah, how can we gently guide the emotional process of of being human? The ups and downs. How can we sort of soothe those bends and be able to create more stability in our day-to-day life? And finally, the fourth one, which I highlighted here, is having more control over our thoughts. That essential point really speaks to the rest here. Is to the rest 1 through 3 is having the ability to let go. Essentially, the control part over our thoughts and emotions comes when we essentially let go of the control. There's a paradox here, right? So when I don't have expectations that my technology is going to be working perfectly, and I'm not going to have full control over it, that is the truth, I'm able to have a greater degree of action or control to make it work, instead of buying into preconceived notions about, the technology not working, people are going to hate me, that's not perfect. So having being centered, essentially, that's the practice. Before we go on here, so again, how do we apply this stuff to the workplace? And the main thing, the other day morning, I woke up and sometimes you wake up in the morning and you have a certain thought that stays with you throughout the day. And the morning I woke up and I thought to myself, I want to overcome distance, like in any sense of the word distance, and particularly psychological distance, right? So in the workplace, when we're working in teams, how can we strengthen our bond and connection with each other and overcome that psychological distance so we can, communicate better and enhance the quality of our work that we deliver together? So overcoming that psychological distance is really one of the core elements here. That helps reduce the anxiety, increases trust and reliability on each other, particularly on high-impact initiatives that we have at work. So bringing that mindfulness awareness, presence, to each other's emotions and thoughts and just physical presence, so we can connect and communicate rather than being blocked by each other's. I can be totally blocked by my own thoughts, or I can just let go and have greater control over the present moment. So going back to authenticity, so being authentic, it could mean anything. I interviewed a executive coach and motivational speaker recently, Jeff Klubeck. He's in San Diego here. And I asked him, I was asking, I'm very curious about what does it mean to be authentic? What does it mean to build an authentic brand? What does that mean in the workplace? And, he started off saying that who knows what's authentic? Everyone has their own interpretation. It's such a subjective idea. What's authentic to me could be totally different to what's authentic to you because we have our own unique perspectives. And that's what's beautiful. It's that contrast that two people create that makes it a powerful interaction and interesting. If we were all the same, that would be kind of boring. So it's celebrating, that the fact that everyone's different and unique, and that's a source of inspiration. So in the workplace, how do we lead an inspired path for ourselves and others? So essentially, authenticity and inspiration they could be synonymous. What's inspiring for me could not be inspiring for you. Something inspiring for you may not be inspiring for me. But being mindfully present and authentic means listening. We can still listen to each other. And discovering what it is that inspires us to work together and create harmony and create meaningful work that's going to have an impact. For example, at Apple, the stories you might hear of Steve Jobs, who had passed away. His whole leadership style was very, honest and direct. He was kind of no bullshit kind of approach to leadership, and he was inspired in that sense. He always stuck to his passion, even when he was kicked out of Apple. He stuck to his vector. His vector is passion. Build Pixar, another billion-dollar company, to Next, which became the core technology of Apple when he returned. And his authenticity is what kept people there. When he first went to interview people when he wanted to return, was that people were still passionate about, bleeding in 6 colors, so to speak. The Apple logo, which had those colors. So people were passionate about the authentic essence of what Apple stood for. So what were those core values? What was the big why? It was the big why of why Apple was in business. And we'll get into that later on too, as one of the core practices, being clear about our purpose. Otherwise, any mindfulness, any activity you want to consider is going to be meaningless unless we have a clarity of purpose, of why we get up in the morning, why we want to do anything. So another way to, put mindfulness into perspective is really simple. It's realizing that every moment is fresh with new discoveries. So as you're sitting there in your chair or you're standing, listening, there's a continuum of how you hear sounds, how you feel sensations in your body, and it's a constant stream of awareness, a constant stream of freshness, newness that is discoverable with the instrument we have as this body. Right? So using the body as the ultimate instrument to sense, perceive, interpret, make sense of things in a way that doesn't settle for preconceived notions, right? So I could hear something, I think I had a good example earlier. I could, think of something that I believe is true about my cup, for example. I have a cup of tea here, and I could believe that my cup of tea is always going to be hot, at this time. But sometimes my cup of tea may not be hot. Maybe a bad example, but you got to be able to not hold fixed to what we believe about the world, what we believe about people's personalities, their capabilities, their potentials. be more relevant to the workplace, we're always changing. I think one view that we might be subscribed to is that when we remember someone, we think about the last time we saw them, the last thing they did, and then we might hold them to that person, to that personality. But then there's this other side of, they're fixed in that state of mind. But then we have this other approach to be aware and present in the moment, and knowing that people are constantly evolving and growing. So what are those differences, from the last time to the present moment? So the ability to read emotions in the present is a powerful skill that mindfulness offers. And mindfulness is a loaded term. At least for me, it is. The word comes up constantly. And a better term may be mindlessness. Not letting the mind get in the way of connecting with ourselves, connecting with other people. I think connection is a powerful word. You think about the internet, and the internet is an expression of the human desire to connect, right? It comes out of that basic fundamental desire that we want to connect with each other. But still, today we look around and you see that people are still craving to connect, to feel heard, felt, to be understood. So being able to connect in a way that allows the other person to be heard and felt. It's something to think about. It's something to pause over. I'm trying to use my pauses here. That alone, is going to be, using our pauses in conversations is another source of fresh discovery. Because the mind loves a completed story, right? Like when we're driving on the road, someone cuts us off, and we might get really angry, or we might get upset, and then we have this instant story that that person deliberately wanted to cut us off and make our day worse. But maybe the story is different. Maybe the story is that that person is in a hurry, needs to go to the hospital for his family, or maybe they're just they're just having a bad day. So the stories are not black and white, and that comes to another one of the core principles here, is that the way we perceive reality is really it's based on the stories that we're telling ourselves. So by practicing those pauses, by practicing mindfulness, it enables us to sort of step back and kind of reassess the story. Is the story true? And having a conversation with it, so it can open up to a broader conversation that includes new perspectives, other perspectives, to create progress together. All right. So, yeah, overcoming those key assumptions that may be holding us back to taking our work, our relationships to the next level, and connecting. And, this conversation can go a lot of different directions. I'm trying to stay on track here, but innovation is one of the topics that really has a button for me, button of excitement. So how it connects with mindfulness, innovation and mindfulness. The intersection is the power of observation, right? The ability to observe ideas, newness, freshness, and build on them. If you have often, some of the companies I've worked with is that there's not enough follow-through on new ideas. So why is that? It could be fear of failure. That's often a visited concept is that the human fear of failure, fear of not being liked, fear of being judged, fear of not getting it right. But being mindful with that emotion, where is that anxiety or fear coming from? And not letting us hold us back, and instead trying the idea, in the smallest scale even possible, is a step of progress. So mindful innovation. All right, so here's another way to frame the idea. What mindfulness is and how it can create more effectiveness and connectedness in the workplace. So it's a state of presence to maximize purpose and trust and connection with ourselves and others. So this is the core practice that I'm going to get more into later on, is having a clear purpose. What gets you up in the morning? What inspires you? Why are you in business? Why are you working with this team? What is that why? That why factor, it taps into the emotional core that drives our thinking and behavior. And so, if you can go throughout your day, throughout the day we have hundreds of thousands of thoughts, right? And if you ask why, maybe a dozen times throughout the day, ask why. Just at random times, ask why. And like noticing the conversation, the story that we're telling ourselves in the moment. Maybe we're standing in line at a restaurant or having a conversation with a friend, and inside we're thinking certain things. So mindfulness is about becoming aware to that internal conversation and noticing it, and when we need to, asking why, and seeing what happens. Not for any any particular, to achieve some particular end, but to create awareness from the inside out and creating the authentic connection, rather than being stuck to a preconceived notion. And then trust, so trusting the process, rather than thinking that once my internet here breaks down, instead of freaking out, which I think I used to do, I think I still did a little bit, trusting that it's going to work out. I'm just going to reset my internet here and then log back on into WebEx here, and just trusting that things are going to work out. It's not going to be the end of the world. And the connection with people, connection with the present moment. Yeah, which I talked about. Okay. So this is a quote I pulled from my book that I think really speaks to the core of this practice. So the basic of all human needs is the need to understand and be understood. The best way to understand people is to listen to them. So the ability to listen is the practice of mindfulness, or really simply put, is the ability to listen and notice instead of wanting to react or say something right away, or have a predefined answer ready to, your coworker or your spouse's question. Instead, listening and, listening with your body, listening with your heart, instead of just settling for some cycle that's in the brain, And we'll get into the neuroscience of mindfulness and conscious breathing and how that can actually open up the circuitry around the brain, which is fascinating. So the ability to understand. So we all want to understand each other better. We all want to connect. We all want to have that trust. A trust factor is really key, and I think that's one of the biggest things that's missing in organizations. We may not trust our leaders or trust our organizations that we work with. Maybe there's not enough transparency. And worst of all, maybe we don't trust ourselves. I don't trust myself to, go ahead and talk to someone that I would need to speak with. Maybe I'm afraid to fail. Maybe I'm afraid to be judged. And one of the benefits to what I found in this practice, how I feel in the process is, I've had social anxiety for a long period of time, and that stemmed from certain experiences I've had. And so my ability to not judge my anxiety, not judge myself, has really been really beneficial to making progress, making strides, making leaps in my own creative ambitions. I have a lot of creative ambition, and so that's been in conflict with what's been holding me back to really want to connect with people. And so becoming aware of myself on a deeper level has enabled me to just be present and become one with the conversation that I have with people rather than fixating on something that I have going on in me. Let's see, what else would I like to mention here? So one thing, maybe we can go back here to the benefits. Maybe on a making this a little interactive. It's hard to. This is hard to make it interactive with a webinar. I'm trying to learn how. So one thing here, let's chance your ability to stress on a scale of 1 to 10. 10 being you're a master of regulating emotion, regulating stress. Number 2, your level on a scale of 1 to 10. How would you rate your level of focused presence in the moment on a scale of 1 to 10? 1 being we're completely in our, it's not always a fixed thing either. Sometimes we can be totally in our thoughts, sometimes we're totally present. So the conditions may vary. But overall, on average, how would you rate your level of focus and present attention? So 10 being very attuned and present. Number 3, on a scale of 1 to 10, how would you rate your emotional stability? Overall, maybe over a span of a few months, when you reflect, 10 being there is a good level of emotional stability. Not too many extremes, not too many lows, because we all have it. The last thing a few weeks ago, I just sort of, I was having a really terrible day. I woke up with a bunch of negative thoughts, and I felt just insignificant. It was not a good day. But I just snapped out of it, and I said, it's adventure time. I went for a hike in nature and just connected with my lake. There's a volcano there and everything. I hadn't been there before. So that helped me to kind of create that stability and not settle for a really extreme low. Number 4, on a scale of 1 to 10, how much control would you say you have over your thoughts? So 1 being you feel like it's just a constant stream, or one of my students said it's like a train and it's just going, full throttle, and you have no control over it, no ability to organize your thoughts or anything. Sometimes that we may feel that way, and sometimes we have control by going beyond thought and feeling centered within the body. So once you guys have, let's see, I'm going to play around with the tools here. So go ahead and raise your hand once you've rated all your, you made all your ratings on the list here. Go ahead and raise your hand in the webinar. Hey, Ali, is there a way
sorry, are you suggesting that you're open for the Q&A now to raise your hands? Or?
Oh, is it a different phase? I was just wondering if I could see the participant hands go up, just to see, they've made those ratings.
Maybe
we can skip that too.
Yeah, we can skip. I believe. Otherwise, yes, we did. I mean, I'm receiving comments. Yes, we did. We did. We read.
Okay, good.
Yeah, yeah.
Great. Okay. Cool. What else? Okay. So where are we at here? Okay. So the basic human need to understand, be understood, is really fundamental. To build strong relationships, it's just so key. So what often happens, the mind gets in the way. I'll see 4, you'll see 3, and then we'll have an argument over it. So maybe you want to consider someone that you may have a conflict with at the moment, or you have an argument with. So have that person in mind, and we're going to revisit that. So here, mindfulness is the ability to see both sides, right? Seeing the whole picture, seeing that, the mind is susceptible to not seeing the whole picture all the time. And that, most arguments we get into are not even worth it, because that doesn't matter if it's 3 or 4. What are we really talking about? What is the essence? What is the substance of our conversation? And that's connection. It's not about a 3 or 4. It's about the human attunement, the connectedness. Sometimes we have so many things in our minds. We have this whole maze of wonderful ideas and maybe not so wonderful ideas that just, cloud our thinking. We say it doesn't always reflect what we're thinking. And that's something to have conscious choice over. So it's not bad to not say anything. Having silence, having pauses is really powerful. It's something I'm trying to do more and more in the communication classes I teach. It's, the less I say and more precise I am with what I say, I feel has the greatest impact. So, what we think, it's this whole cloud of stuff. So, you look at the sky, you see clouds. And the clouds pass. We don't have to hold on to all the clouds. The cloud is going to shift and change its form. So that's very much like how thoughts are, right? Thoughts are constantly changing and reforming. We don't have to fixate on them. And that's the realization of just being present to the body's sensations, the movement of the breath, and which we'll get into. Let's see. Oh. So here's a nice art installation I came across. By the way, I don't know who made this, but if anyone does know who made this, let me know. I want to give them the credit. But I thought it was really cool, so I included it here on the slide. So this really, I think, really captures what it means to be mindful. Sort of, we have all these thoughts going on, we have these arguments going on, and then once in a while we have a chance to sort of step back from, the canvas of life and reflect and make choices, make decisions on the plans that are important to us. We don't have to be stuck in this cycle that we are in our relationships. We don't have to be stuck to this project that may not be serving its full potential to the core business or the core health of the team. So the ability to step back, reflect, and make conscious choices, I think, is powerful in business. So creating those times, creating those spaces to think. I did a recent study working with an IT company right now, and they want to become great at delivering service, IT solutions, delivering those kinds of services to people. And, the general trend in IT is, it's very techy, the service reps, they talk in the techie language, don't always connect with the human core, of their clients and meet their real business needs, which are constantly shifting and emerging, right? So being able to connect with that is how they want to differentiate themselves. And one of the feedbacks I got from the interviews and surveys is that we don't have enough time to brainstorm or think about the bigger picture and plan long term, because we're always, they're always constantly in the day-to-day grind. Projects are very busy, got multiple projects, there's constant communication, coordination in the team, which is great. One of the strengths that they have, a lot of communication. But they also need that time to step back, reflect, look at the bigger picture, brainstorm, bounce ideas. So, using the right side of the brain, so to speak, looking at the bigger picture to see how the details on the left side of the brain might fit together or might not fit together. So having that conversation to create more alignment with the goals and the challenges that we face. So here's a bit on the neuroscience of mindful presence. How about before we get into that, let's do a little mindfulness exercise. So generally, so if you want to just relax, find your comfort space in the chair that you're sitting. So just feel comfortable. Feel your spine just become balanced, balancing your head on your shoulders and just relaxing your neck and shoulders. And taking a few deep breaths. And just becoming present to the breath. It's almost like there's a fragrance inside your breath, and you want to research that. You want to experience that here and now. And this is the art of noticing, the art of allowing, without holding on to any thought. And just coming to the breath, the natural rhythm of the breath. And you may notice thoughts come and go. That's totally okay. It's a constant stream. And we're taking a chance now to just observe the clouds, so to speak, and not hold on to anything. Just being very aware of the breath. You may close your eyes if that helps you. You can survey your entire body, becoming aware of your awareness of your body. And gently coming back to your breath. So not giving importance to any thought at the moment. We can have thoughts later on. So just for now, we're noticing. Just relaxing the mind, relaxing any stresses that we may have. So take a few deep breaths. Okay? So that's an example. That's an experience. So maybe you want to write down some things that came to mind, some things that stood out for you from that exercise. Generally, there are two kinds of ways to practice mindfulness. One is kind of the general awareness of your body, or the present moment, sounds, so on. Another part, a way to practice mindfulness, is focusing your attention on one thing. It could be the tip of your nose. It could be the center of your chest. Ultimately, it's about having control over your attention, where your attention goes. You can have a million thoughts. Your attention doesn't have to go to all of them. Going back to purpose, which we'll get into. Once you have a clear purpose, then you can prioritize. You can make choices to what those thoughts you want to attend to, what thoughts are going to be most beneficial to the people you serve. All right. So now we can get into some neuroscience here. So there's some really cool studies done on neuroscience. The general baseline of, by the way, I'm not a neuroscientist, but I've read some interesting articles, and I'm trying to fit some of those ideas that make sense in the presentation here. So yeah, generally, when we're trying to process a lot of information, when our cognitive faculties in our mind are, really going on high cylinder, we're generally at the beta wave in the brain, at the beta wave. So it's reflecting a lot of resonance, a lot of information processing in the brain. So a lot of thoughts going on, back and forth, trying to make sense, reason through things, And what mindfulness does, it brings us to an alpha stage. And so you can see the difference here. Before meditation, there's a lot of activity in the brain, around the ears particularly. So again, going back to listening, it kind of relaxes the parts of our brain to become present and become like, a fresh canvas to receive new information, new discoveries. So there are other images that show, other studies done that show, when we're thinking a lot, there's a frontal lobe of the brain that's responsible for higher order thinking, for planning the day, making long-term plans. And when we're constantly planning, that part of our brain is active. So once in a while, we can become present and evaluate our plan, reassess our plan. Is it the best plan? And when we study people who practice mindful awareness, it shows that that part of the brain, when they're in that activity of practicing awareness in the breath, the frontal lobe actually begins to inhibit, in particular the default circuit. So the default circuit is where we have this internal monologue, it's the default, story that we subscribe to. So the inner chatter, that's highly excited in a certain part of the frontal lobe. And when we're mindfully breathing, fMRI studies show that that part of the brain inhibits, and new circuitries throughout the brain begin to resonate. So essentially, we're oxygenating the brain. The brain needs a certain level of oxygen. And when we make it a conscious activity within the body, instead of just an autonomous one, it's an autonomous activity that goes on in the brain. So when we make it conscious, it oxygenates the brain more, taking more deeper breaths. and taking those pauses. What else here? Yeah, so when we're meditating or practicing mindful awareness, mindful breathing, the frontal cortex relaxes a bit, and we can kind of reflect in a different way, and reduces the flow of information that we're constantly trying to process, so we can process new information. We can create new processes to understand things in a different way. Another thing, yeah, another interesting part is the medial prefrontal cortex, and that's been referred to as the me center. So it's the part of the brain where we're thinking about me, you know, our identity, the way we identify with our thoughts, the way we identify with the world. It's connected with this me center of the brain. And when we're practicing mindful awareness, this part of the brain, you know, relaxes, and the assessment center of the brain actually, which is the, you know, mindful reasoning part of the brain, it increases, and we can, you know, assess things from a broader perspective. And there are other studies showing that there's more potential for creativity, more compassion, empathy, and this can go on. I'm trying to, you know, honor the time here that we have together. So, the core practice, which I alluded to early on, is, you know, having a clear purpose. You know, what gets you up in the morning? You know, if it's mindfulness, if it's, you know, practice of gratitude, whatever it may be, even before all of that, we need to have a clear purpose. You know, what inspires us? What is it? What's the meaning of the day? What's the underlying premise of the stories that we're creating with others? You know, why are we in business? So, you know, the big why factor. You know, Simon Sinek, you know, he did a TED Talk talking about the golden circle, you know, where why we're in business is at the center of the circle. How we conduct business is at the outer ring, and then what we're actually producing is in the outermost outer part of the circle. So the center is about knowing why. What are the core values? You know, you think about Apple. You know, their core values are think different. You know, you think about Zappos. I don't know if you guys are familiar. Zappos is a shoe company, online shoe company. They sell a lot of different stuff, and they reached over a course of, I think, a few years, maybe 3-4 years, maybe less, they were sold to Amazon for a few $2 billion. And what really differentiated their culture was having clear values. You know, they have like 10 core values that, you know, and they practice on an ongoing basis. Things like being passionate and determined, delivering wow service, you know, something that they label as great service, wow service, wowing the customer. So those are some of the reasons for why they're in business. You know, the profit aspect is gonna come once they have the culture piece down, and obviously they made that work for themselves. You know, achieving $1 billion. Number 2 is connecting with the present moment. So that's the other principle here. To, you know, using the breath as a bridge to come into the body and connecting with our relationships, people that are around us. And finally, it's trust in the process, you know, not needing everything to go a certain way, but rather trusting a greater dynamic of forces to take shape and help you on your quest to meet your goals. So clarity of purpose. Let's see. So this is the big why factor. So the exercise I'd like to offer you guys here is And this can be a whole 4-hour or 2-day seminar or workshop. But just to kind of put the idea out there, how it relates to the conversation here, is write down your statement of purpose. Why do you do what you do? What is the underlying essence? What is the substance of your story that you're creating for your life, for your work? Another way to word it is, how do you want to be remembered? What is your legacy? What is your purpose? Another way to put it is, what kind of feeling do you want to bring into the world? What kind of feeling do you want to bring into the world? So this is the why power, the why factor. It gets to the emotional roots of our day-to-day thinking, day-to-day emotions. It helps us prioritize. When we have a clear purpose, we can make decisions more easily. We don't have to react to this situation or that situation. We can be more selective in how we respond and to what we respond to. So this is really crucial. So write down your statement of purpose. And it doesn't have to be fixed, again, it's something that may evolve. But essentially, it's got to have resonance for you. For me, it's being inspired and inspiring others. So inspiring others and being inspired, that is my purpose. Really, that's like, if everything were to be screwed up, I could go to that route and to stay inspired. And inspiration, it means to breathe, to be breathed. So that goes back to the practice of conscious breathing, conscious awareness. So as long as I'm breathing, I'll be inspired. The second here is connection with the present. So relaxing the mental mind, the mental chatter, and becoming present with the breath. And so, let's go back to that relationship that we talked about earlier or alluded to. So think about a relationship that you're in conflict with right now, or there's not enough trust, or there's an argument going on. And write down some ideas. So listen to that conversation you're having with yourself right now about that relationship. And maybe write down some words, some ideas that express how you feel. Or just express what's happening, Okay? And and think about how such conflicts have been approached in the past, and what's happened, what's been the cycle of this relationship, or this kind of argument or conflict. Okay, so now let's do trying to see how are we doing with time.
Well, I'm afraid
minutes, right, Ali?
We have consumed most of the time, so you can let us know. I mean, do you have another 5 minutes, or?
Gotcha. Okay.
Okay,
cool.
sir.
So
more 5 minutes.
Sure. All right. Cool. So so we're going to do a little, maybe it's a minute of breathing, just conscious breathing. So you have this sort of conflict active, and you can just sit down and just focus on the breath, just for a minute. Just becoming aware of any thoughts that may arise and not clinging to them. Just gently coming to the breath. The feelings that come with it. How the lungs expand. How the breath flows. Not trying to control your breath in any way either. Just following the natural rhythm of your breath. Could be some deep breaths, some shallow breaths. Just researching the process of breathing, the flow of your breath. Okay, so you want to take a breath and complete that cycle of the practice. And now think about some, maybe write down how you would approach the relationship differently. You know, now that you may be in a more centered space, how might that conflict or argument be approached differently? Maybe have some ideas there on your paper. Okay, and finally, trust in the process. You know, not fixating on any outcomes, but going with the flow, and trusting that any tension or conflict is an opportunity to learn. It's an opportunity to grow, not something to resist or think it's going to be detrimental to our self-image or so on. So being present really allows us to relax our hold on our self-image and being present. And apologize, may have gone over time a little bit here, but I appreciate for everyone listening in and Ali for giving me a chance to present today.
Thank you very much, Brother Solhay, for a very interesting and intriguing presentation. Folks, we are open for the Q&A. If you have questions, you can either raise your hand. I'll give you a chance to speak to speaker directly, or you could put your questions in the question box. I see there are questions in the question box, so let me go straight to the question box. There is a first one. You mentioned control over thoughts comes when you let go things. You rightly called it a paradox. How do you let go your thoughts or achieve a state of complete idleness or an idle mind without inviting a devil to open a workshop?
Yeah. That workshop's always available. So it is a paradox, and it's a daily practice. The way I've been able to relate with this is to not try to have control over thoughts, to not try to have that ultimate state of bliss or idleness or stillness. But it's something that, again, goes back to trust. Having a deeper sense of trust in yourself and myself really eliminates most of the thoughts or, negative thinking that we might have. And, bringing attention to the breath, because, the breath is a place where no thought is required. It's a neutral space to have that moment of idleness. So I would just say that it's a daily practice to not expect anything from the outcome. Not expect anything from the practice, but just cherishing it as something that that you might believe in, that you just trust that it has benefits.
Okay, we have a hand raised, so let me move to a caller. We have a hand raised, so let me move to a caller. Brother Bassam Alvarit. Brother Bassam Alvarit. Could you please introduce yourself and ask the question?
Can you hear me?
Yes. Hi.
Okay, great. This is Tanuri. A lot of what I heard is very useful, but it seems like a reiteration of the emotional intelligence framework, but in a different way. And sarcastically asked the question, why are we confusing people?
So what's the question?
Let me, Bassam, there was an echo, so I believe you have also posted the question, so I'm taking the liberty to read it on your behalf. The question is, mindfulness useful as it sounds, seems to be a restatement of the emotional intelligence framework in a different flavor. Why are we confusing people?
Okay. Yeah, I mean, it's just different vocabularies, you know, and the whole idea is to go beyond words or thoughts. You know, the practice itself is what's going to have the impact on the physiology and the feelings that we have, you know. So the words are really secondary here, and thank you for bringing that up. Yeah, emotional intelligence is something that people like to use. Mindfulness, some people like to use. Essentially is, you know, the ability to connect and feel the present moment.
Okay, Brother Masum, hope.
Brother Mansum, hope. Yes, thank you. That answered my question. I appreciate
all
it.
right. Thank you very much for asking the question.
Thank you.
Let me move to the question box again. There's another one. How authenticity could prevail as a genuine thought process if we are planning to become an actor? That is, to continuously think and act in a manner intentionally to inspire others and ourselves.
How can we do that?
Yeah, I believe the question is about the authenticity. Are we actually acting or being an actor, or are we being genuine in our authenticity to inspire others?
So that's something that the individual has to choose. What is authentic? What is inspiring? You know, on some levels, we may all be acting. You know, we're all playing a role. I think the question is, what kind of role are we playing? What is the intention of that role? What is the impact it's designed to have? You know, what is the plan of that role? You know, how is it making a difference? I think that's something that, you know, it's an internal conversation we have with ourselves, and then the way we express that with others is going to depend on how clear are we with, you know, with that, with the purpose of that role, with the purpose of our, you know, acting, if you want to speak of that. Yeah.
Okay. We have another one. Does concentration or focus actually suppress your thoughts and your brain doesn't become receptive to other coming thoughts?
So does concentration repress
Yeah, I believe
thoughts?
the question is about does concentration actually suppress the incoming thoughts, like you are not more receptive to other thoughts?
Yeah, receptive is a good word. We could approach it from this angle, is concentrating without reacting. I think it's going from reactive mode to thoughts to responding to thoughts. You know, so when we're concentrating on a task or project or activity, you know, we should be completely in that project, in that activity. You know, the attention is the most powerful tool that we have. So how do we sharpen that tool? How do we use it? You know, how we concentrate. And then how we choose our thoughts in the process of concentration, attention. Not sure if that answers your question.
Yeah, I know it was an abstract question. Okay, one last question we have. What impact does language has over thinking, considering we are living in multilingual societies and simultaneously communicating in different languages?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, what kind of influence does language have over thinking? Yeah, so language of thoughts. That's a good question. What kind of influence? I don't know. I mean, thoughts are just waveforms. You know, if you think about it, it's just there's an emotional resonance to the thoughts that we have. And that's how we make meaning out of thoughts. There's no built-in meaning into any thoughts other than the stories that we attach to them. And those stories have a certain language. It could be in Arabic, it could be in English, it could be in Chinese. So that's how we identify with our thoughts, through the languages that we've learned. I don't know, that's how I might make sense of it right now, at least.
Yeah, okay, so folks, that really brings us towards the end of the webinar. So I would like to thank you, Brother Arya Saleh, for a very interesting presentation, a very different one, I must say. And I apologize, everyone, for an initial technical glitch that we encountered in the beginning, but I'm glad that we got over it and Mr. Saleh was here. So any concluding remarks that you would like to give, Mr. Saleh, before we dismiss out?
Yeah, I just really appreciate this opportunity, and thank you all. Have a great day.
No, thank you indeed, and thank you very much for your time and for this presentation, and thank you all of those who participated and stayed with us for this whole presentation. So you all have a good day, good evening, good afternoon, wherever you're calling from.